recording. All right, welcome everybody to Making the Cut, the artist talk in the Shoebox Projects online juried exhibition. I'm honored to curate this, and the idea, I mean, I do a lot of cutting in my work. I use Exacto knives, and actually right now, so funny, I have carpal tunnel, and I also have, it's like ulnar entrapment. And so in my elbow, and I'm sure it's like from, everything, well, part of it's from everything I do with art. Part of it's from holding this damn phone too, I think. But, it's like the stuff that we go through for art, like the injury, the pain, the blood, sweat, and tears, right? And so I wanted to see other art, where artists, cut their art and, did things like that. And so I decided to put together the exhibition. I did think about it. I wanted to curate a physical exhibition. I thought about it a few months ago, but, life got in the way. So, and we have our alternative art space, Shoebox Projects, is online right now. Shoebox Projects has been around for 6 or 7 years now. It started off as a residency space here at my space at the brewery in Los Angeles. And so we had a physical space. I also had a little gallery in my closet, my broom closet, which was really exciting. And then of course the pandemic hit, and so everything went online. And we're happy to be able to give more of an opportunity to artists by having online exhibitions and doing artist talks like this, where everybody can get to know each other. And in fact, before I forget, I am all about community. I'm all about artists meeting each other, getting to know each other, getting to know our art. So if I welcome you to put your websites and Instagram and contact information in the chat. And then at the end, at the end of the talk, you could save your chat and leave here and follow everybody and get to know other artists and build your community. So be sure to do that and and share your work. So let's see, I also run Shoebox Arts, which is my baby, my main company. We're an artist mentor, support network, manager, PR company. We do we offer resources and tools to artists, in many different ways. And so from Shoebox Arts, Shoebox Projects came. And I also run Art and Cake, which is an online art magazine, mostly based in Los Angeles, but we do cover some shows outside if our writers travel. So, I'm also an artist, like I said earlier. I paint, I cut, I do mixed media work. I curate exhibitions. I do a lot of my work's about body image, and I curated an exhibition, a conceptual piece about that. And so yeah, I'm kind of all in the art world, and and I love it. So yeah, I know you all want to get on to see the show. So if you haven't seen it, I'll put the link in chat again, just so it's there. What we'll do is, I'll show the exhibition and I'll talk about it for just a couple of minutes. And then I want to hear from the artists, and actually, just so we, put the call out on Cafe and our website. And if you didn't hear before, we had almost 900 submissions with almost 200 artists. So, which is amazing to see how many artists are doing this type of work. And it was a wide range of art, from, traditional collage to installation work to video. There were several great videos that came in, and it was so hard. Every time I jury a show, I say it's going to be my last time because jurying is so hard. I mean, I wanted to choose everybody, honestly, and I'm like, well, it's an online show, so I really can if I wanted to, but no. I had like 90 artists chosen, and then it went down to 80 and then 60. And then I think I, finally went through the exhibition, and it ended up being 44 artists are in the show. And it was just based on, I went through and I looked through the exhibition over a couple days, like a few hours, both days. And I went through and looked at all of the artwork that came in, and I looked for kind of themes and I don't know, themes, and what's the other word? Just like, I looked at I don't know, there was like rhythm, I looked at, I don't know, that word seems to come up a lot when I look at the show. There was just this rhythm to a lot of the work that I saw, and that that I started marking yes for, when I was selecting the work. It was hard because there was a lot of work that was very similar to each other. And so, I tried to stay away from that. And, if the artist didn't get in, I wanted to let everybody know that we sent an email out with my email address saying, please, contact me for feedback. And so many of the artists contacted me, and I gave them feedback about, why they didn't get in. And every single time it wasn't because of their work. It was just that it didn't fit in my rhythm, the cohesiveness of the exhibition that I put together. So again, just very, very hard to, choose among 200 artists and 800, 900 works, to put together a show. So, if you ever wonder about how a juried show comes together, and if you're ever depressed over rejection, it's never about you. So don't worry about that. But yeah, so, the work that, like I said, the work that I put together, and if you're just coming in, if you don't mind muting yourself, that way we don't hear any feedback or anything. So like I said, the work that I saw coming in, there was also the other word that came to mind was poetic. There were just the works that came in, there was just this poetry about them in many different ways. And so I feel like the exhibition in itself is poetic. And I curated it, in a poetic way also. It went from like repetition to nature to kind of this musical rhythm almost, to politics. There were a few pieces with politics, to construction, to the way the pieces were put together, to geometry, mathematics, and so I was like really pleased once I put them all the work in like this folder on my computer, and I renumbered everything, and I kept moving things around, and it was a lot of fun. It was actually a lot of fun to put the exhibition together. So I'm really, really proud of it. And just, excited to, like I said, to get to meet all of these artists that there's only a few artists in the show that I actually know. And only a couple that I recognized, like early on, when I was judging, or that I kind of, because a lot of times, I mean, I know a lot of artists, so it's, but that was exciting to get to, like I said, learn and meet new artists. So with that, so what I'll do is I'm just going to share my screen here, and let's see. And I'm gonna just I'm gonna go through the exhibition once, just to kind of, again, and I kind of explained it already, the order that I put the exhibition in. And then what I'm gonna have each artist do, each artist that's here, I know there's quite a few artists that weren't able to make it. But what I'll have you do, and I know there's a couple of artists who needed to talk first, or who needed to talk earlier. So I'll have the artist raise your virtual hand, and you can do that in the reactions. There's a reactions button, and it says raise hand. So I'll have the artist raise their hand, and then you'll be able to, talk about your work. So I wanted to start off with Paul's work here, which, I just love the rhythm, like every single piece. There was just, the construction, the way that it was put together. Yeah, the repetition, all of it. So I'm not going to talk about each one, but that started, everything. It just, every work that I put in after that kind of fell into place, and it was seamless. There were a couple that I moved around, but for the most part, it just all came together, really seamlessly. I do recommend you clicking on the images, because it's not exactly, it may not be what it seems because of the way the website is. So when you go and look later on, click on the images so you can get the full effect. And I'm just going to slide through, kind of fast here before we, choose or have the artist talk. And let's see. And yeah, I love the originality of the work. It's just so fun. And again, poetic and graceful. I think graceful is a really, really nice word. And, there were some pieces that are more traditional, but then, the construction of the pieces, was really important in when I chose to put the exhibition together. And let's see, almost to the bottom here. And like I said, I put the link in chat so you can go back in and take a look. And there we have it. That's the exhibition. So with that, sorry if that made you dizzy. Rachel, were you one that contacted me and needed to go first? Okay, cool. Let me see. And I found a nifty way to bring up the artist. So yeah, go ahead. We'd love to hear about your work.
Okay, great. Glad to see everybody here. So I decided a few years ago it was time to let go of my 50 years of personal journals. And so I literally made the cut to all of them and shredded them. So the content of those journals, of course, is only known to me, but I take the energy and force and the memory of them to inspire and create something new. And around the same time, I also started to work with hog gut. And I'm in awe of its translucence and its metaphorical references. And it's also incredibly versatile. The long strands of gut interact with my journal shreds in a myriad of ways. I've wrapped the shreds, I've stuffed the gut with the shreds, and I use the dried gut to tie the shreds together. As I work, I'm thinking about what is said and unsaid, the process of reworking old memories, organic shapes that literally and figuratively come from the gut, and such terms as spilling my guts and what does your gut tell you? Thanks.
Awesome. I love that. And, one of the things that attracted me is I've cut up and shredded my journal pages too. So I totally understand the emotion, the feeling behind it, and, everything that it represents. But yeah, I mean, just, the way you presented them was really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for being part of the exhibition.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Who else would like to talk about their work? Go ahead, and because I can't see everybody with the screen shared, shared. So you can raise your hand in the reactions menu. Nancy.
Okay. Yeah, it was the second one. I did this during lockdown when I was trying to use just materials that I had in my studio without having to go to the store. So that was, for a while we were all just confined. And my husband gave me a pad of paper, and I don't know what you call it, graph paper, grid paper, whatever. It was this old tablet, and it had, these blue lines on it that you can kind of see behind it in the background. So I decided to start playing with cutting up pieces of, you know, magazine and books and whatever, and laying these things down in a square pattern. And I did a whole bunch of grids in all different ways. Like there was one that I did that was just eyes and just faces. The more I did them, the more sort of complicated they became. And so on this one, it got a little more complex, where I started painting cardboard and then cutting that out and then putting that on top of the flat pieces, and then cutting and then punching out circles and different things and putting them on top of that. So there's some dimension to this that's kind of hard to see on a JPEG. And so that's it. That is what I did. They were a lot of fun.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you know, yeah, how many of us like created new things and played around and experimented during the pandemic, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, this was fun. I mean, you know, the geometry of it, the shapes, you know, the way you laid the color, the composition. Yeah, no, it was a really, really great piece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for including me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, Lori. There we go. There you go.
Hi.
Hello.
I did these works. There are 3 of them. And I started them in late 2020. And I recognized that at that time, and because of COVID, because of the political situation, it was just a time of tremendous angst for everybody. And I deliberately decided to remove myself from that angst and negative feelings. And I decided I wanted to create a series of works that were just serene, harmonious, peaceful. I wanted the viewer to be able to look at these works and then be drawn and recognize that peaceful meditative place they had inside themselves, and realize there's a respite that you can have from the outside world. So these works are sort of art for art's sake. And they were constructed extremely meticulously. They all had their starting point of just a landscape photograph. And it could be an actual landscape photograph. A couple I got from calendars my insurance company sent me. Some of them were from actual old Japanese prints. But in none of them did I just copy the picture. I just simply used the photograph as a springboard for creating a completely different scene. And I would combine elements from different photographs. And I tried to make them all, they're all play with space in a certain amount. Like on this one that's now up, there's a reflection of the mountain in the lake, but the reflection is so far away from the lake, it's impossible. You could never have that in reality. And these roses coming down on the side, you don't know where they're coming from. There's nothing there. So, or the trees coming up from the bottom, are they coming from the shore? Are they coming from land? Are they in the water? So they're sort of, they look normal when you first look at them, but when you look at them longer, they become rather surrealistic and magical, because they're basically irrational landscapes that could never exist in real life. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. And you know what, that's one of the reasons that I chose this work, is because of the peace that I saw in them. And a lot of the work, you know, right now the world is kind of, I don't want to say shit, but you know, it's like, it's, you know, we need more peace. We need more like a place to, you know, just like settle. And these have the spiritualness, this, yeah, they're lovely in that way. And a lot of the work that, I chose also, that's part of the poetry. There's just something, where your eye can rest, in different ways. So no, thank you so much. These are really lovely.
Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. All right, let's see, Rennie. Oops. And oh, there we go.
Hi, thank you for including me. Am I okay? So my motivation was very similar to, I believe it was Nancy, when she was talking about working during the pandemic, sort of isolated and locked down and using only what was available in my studio. And so I just decided that I would start working with anything I had, which was primarily paper-based and some acrylic. And so they're small, they're only 8 inches square, but I like tiling them together in grids like this, but they are individual pieces intended to be units or compositely displayed. And I work a lot with sacred geometry, and I do a lot of paper cutting on a large scale. And so some of these motifs were being culled from the patterns that I would use to make the big paper cuts. And then I would sort of riff on my own sort of rhythms. Here you go with that word again. And just play until something sort of resonated with me. So I think a lot of us probably I have found that a lot of artists have turned to collage during the lockdown and sheltering in place. And it was a very comforting sort of activity. It was very playful, no restraints, no end game, no, deadline. And so just going to keep making them, and probably make about 100 of them in the 70s at the moment.
Wow. I could see these in a grid, on the wall. I think they'd be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to put all 100 of them up together, but
yeah. Although I think I'd like to see them next to each other, that way at eye level, so you can actually look at them all. Because if they're in the grid, you're not going to be able to see the details of each one. But
right, because they are fairly unique pieces in and of themselves, and I don't know. I mean, I don't even have them all anymore because they're very easy to give away. So it's been very cathartic.
Yeah, they're wonderful. I mean, I love the pattern and design movement. And so, Miriam Shapiro and Joyce Kozlov, and, who use a lot of, different patterns and designs in their work. And so I was definitely drawn to these, in that respect, and also maps. I mean, I definitely saw the maps and, that showed up, and yeah, they're great.
Well, I try to make them as complex as I can, and to create. I'm not instilling particular narratives in them, but I do encourage people to kind of go down their own rabbit hole when, something triggers an idea or memory or something along those lines. And the maps actually cue people in quite quickly to different things on their minds. So, but I mean, I don't throw any maps away.
Yeah, I used to, when I went to Europe like 15 years ago, I brought back all of the maps that I'd get at the hotels, of the touristy places, and I use those in my work too. I love that. Well, thank you so much. So glad you're part of the exhibit.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's see. All right. And so we have Jennifer. Let's see.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm an artist residing in the Great Lakes region. So my cut paper art, especially these pieces, explore the emotions elicited by the frailty and impending mortality of my loved ones and myself by envisioning the underlying chemical and macromolecular mechanisms of certain mental and physical processes. I use ink, handmade paper, and cut paper to represent vital structures in the human body, intermixing with representational and non-representational imagery made with inks, water, wood, charcoal, and acrylic to create immersive installations and wall hung artwork, as you can see. that's it. Thank you so much for including me in this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. No, they're so, I mean, they do seem really fragile and ephemeral, yet strong also. And so I think that's the, I don't know if that's life, right? Exactly. Exactly. No, they're wonderful. And, I love when cut paper is used, in different ways as installation to represent, whether it's nature or, memory or, our lives. So, these were wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I love using cut paper as installations as well, because there's the shadows or another aspect to it that creates more visuals. So
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you can see that here. Awesome. All right, let's see, Anna. And where, oh, there we go. And you'll probably have to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
So when do I start? Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So this work is in a series I've been working on for 3.5 years. Started more or less the summer before COVID, and it's all culminating in an exhibition that's going to be at the Peel Museum in Baltimore. It's the famous Peels of Philadelphia and Baltimore, and some of the work is very relevant to the Peel's natural history collections. The exhibition is titled Compensation for Loss, which borrows from the, I'm a textile conservator as well, and it's a term used in textile conservation. And so I'm using it as like the jumping off point for this show, riffing on a cabinet of curiosities. But my version of it is, we know about these specimens. They're no longer newly discovered as they were in the age of discovery, where they were being brought back, like with the spice routes and all those sorts of things. We know about these things now, and man has to do something to intervene to help each individual species. So it's a huge topic, but I'm approaching it by a very specific story about a specific species. So that's sort of the lead in. This piece is called wait, can you go back to the Mastodon? Sorry. I'm trying to follow your lead. This piece is titled Mastodon's Natural History. And the architecture of it is riffing on a traditional Wunderkammer, which would be a room with natural history collections. But there's a lot of things going on in the piece. The chinoiserie background is either what's really outside or it's too toxic to go outside. So we have this beautiful wallpaper. And during COVID, I was thinking about all those things about having to have outdoor air come in, all these spaces that have traditionally always been closed spaces. So it's sort of like these could be windows, and then there's grass, and the mastodon is on a plinth, and it's actually walking off the plinth as if like, hey, honey, the specimens are leaving the Natural History Museum sort of riff on this, but also like the ground that the mastodon's in with that sort of sinking in area is riffing on all the things you find in archaeology. And it has a lot of more recent industrial findings in it as well. And the Delft tiles are riffing on the age of exploration. But this is also related to the Peels because they actually, and I love this, I've been doing serious research for more than 3 years about the topic, and the Peels actually excavated a mastodon in 1802 in Newburgh, New York.
Wow.
And they had the skeleton on display. Of course, there's stories about it not being correct, and they had to change it, but I don't want to take like more time than, so you can go to the next one and I'll just explain it briefly. So this one is about the ivory-billed woodpecker. And if there's any birders on the screen, it was what declared extinct. The title of this piece is No Longer Extinct because they started finding them. They're in the bottomlands in Louisiana, which means like the bald cypress swamps. And I'm showing like different iterations of a partial rendering of a woodpecker, because there's like connected dots in different versions, and then just like sketchy drawings. And then you see in the middle, the bird isn't complete, and the landscape is sort of filling in where there would be a bird. So it's also about species fragmentation and species loss, and losing their habitat and all that, of course. So thank you for your time and attention, and thank you for curating me in with my fellow cut up artists.
Oh, you're very welcome. And you know, one of the things I loved about these pieces is the attention to detail, you know, in all aspects. Like everything you did was for a reason. And you know, yeah, just really, really powerful work. So, and
Thank
a lot
you.
of work I chose, it was, you know, the attention to detail that was paid too. So it fit right in. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's see, Cheryl. And oh, there we go.
I think I'm unmuted.
Hello,
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so
welcome.
much for including me in the exhibit. I'm honored to be here with my fellow artists. And yes, attention to detail was something that was a priority for me in this piece. And also this piece called Shield of Faith. And I kind of envision our connectedness as people in these pieces. And these are sort of, you know, I was also thinking about the roads and the grittiness of life. And, you know, how many times have we heard someone say, yes, but the sun is still coming up tomorrow, you know, whatever, however you fill in that blank. And I was thinking about this majestic backdrop that we live amidst, even with the grittiness of life. And I was trying to deal with human microcosms and majestic macrocosms, and obviously connectivity and community, building community through art is kind of at the essence of what I'm trying to do. And what also was important to me was to kind of bring a bit of painting and pastel to collage. And so attention to shadows and light, and just wanting also the viewer to put themselves in the piece. And sort of in doing so, I'm hoping to encourage critical thought, meaning why, you know, I want people to ask, why is this in the piece? And maybe start thinking about how it relates to their own lives and reframing things. And I think that's, as cutters, you know, cutters and collages, however, you know, I know you're taking a new twist on it, not always just referring to us as collagists, but a lot of us are reframers in terms of using other, you know, old material, thrown out material. And that's one of the things I love about it, because, you know, I grew up with grandparents who went into adulthood during the Depression years. And as a 7-year-old, I would look at them sort of like, what are you doing, when they would reuse the margarine containers time after time after time. And now as an adult, I know they were repurposing, they were exercising sustainability. And so these works are from, you know, sort of old paper, thrown out paper, and repurposed. So that's kind of the heart of it. Thanks so much. I also felt, I was very excited to be included, and I felt like I was birthed into a new community immediately. And I'm just impressed, Christine, with the community you've built. And you know, I could feel the strength of it virtually, you know, and kudos to you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, you know, really, really powerful work. And, you know, just exactly like you said, you know, when I was looking at it, you know, I was thinking of my stepdad, who's opposite for me politically, and I was thinking about, you know, equality. And, you know, I mean, just there's so many different layers to the work. And, you know, yeah, nature and nurture, and Yeah, just really, really wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. All right, let's see, Stephanie. Oops. Let me get out of here. And oh, there we go. I think, oh yeah, you were up right above. All right.
Hi,
Hello.
you can hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I also want to thank you, and I've always wanted to see a lot more collage integrated and a lot of collage together. And when the show went live today and I got to scroll through it, it was really exciting. And then to hear you, Christine, talk about how you order things was nice. Like even like starting with the repetition, which I'm clearly in the kind of repetition category, and how that then trickled down into other categories, and hearing people talk about why they were working on collages or repurposing materials. I think that's so much to the essence of what collage can do, and also definitely how I made these two pieces. So, well, I'm from Philadelphia, so it is dinner time here, but I wish I was in LA because it's very cold today. But so my work in general, I'm primarily a painter, and I go in and out of these peripheral projects that I do. Sometimes the collage ends up taking over completely, but then it always ends up feeding back into painting, which has been really, really fruitful for my practice. And in general, my work is about connections, patterns of growth, and micro macro relationships. I research a lot about ecology and eco theory, and I am finding ways to embed more of that into my practice. And these two works were both made when I went into grad school at Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia. And very similarly, it was the pandemic. I couldn't afford anything. So I was looking at what the resources I had to work with. And because I came out of working in the visual department at Macy's Philadelphia doing window design, I used to actually steal and collect a lot of things we would throw out. So this work in particular has a ton, I think it's like Ralph Lauren ads or something, that they have these beautiful printed styrenes with, they're wonderful surfaces, and I painted and worked on top of them. And so all of this work really came out of found and discarded materials. Students were trashing beautiful drawings and ink drawings. So I ended up cutting everything up and starting to play with paper weaving. And a lot of it was about just the repetition of weaving. And as I worked, because I'm not very precise, the weavings would start to mutate and change in shape and size. And I started to really see a lot of parallels between processes of growth and evolution over time. I was thinking a lot about forested ecosystems and trying to think of how to reflect these in this sort of abstracted space, but then also the way the perspectives can shift back and forth when you're using anything that creates grid structures, which is what ended up happening in the piece we're looking at now, that I then cut and quilted all together. And so, yeah, and I'm excited. Thank you for having me here. And I'm excited to, I don't find a lot of shows want to have, like, this piece is huge, for example. I haven't felt comfortable applying with this piece before. So it's really nice to be able to see it in context with other collage artists.
Well, that's awesome. I love how you own that I'm not precise. Like, you own that imperfectionism, and oh my gosh, I am messy. I am like the least precise person. And I used to want to be an architect. So I'm like, that's one reason I'm not. But I love how you own that in the way you talk about your work too. And you talk about your work so well. Yeah, this is just, there is, this history of weaving, and there are a lot of artists out there who are doing it, but yours is like the attention to the detail and the imperfection, or it's not just weaving, it's you're weaving together. I think there's something about that. And so yeah, this work was really special, so I'm glad to have it in the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. All right, Nicola, who happens to be my neighbor. I can knock on the wall.
You could.
Wait,
I'm busy right now, though.
I know.
Not to be repetitive, but the work in this show is absolutely amazing. And I wish one day this could come to fruition. I would love to see some of these pieces in person. Stephanie, your work was absolutely amazing. I've tried to do some weaving and it's, I may do it again, but it's a nightmare. And I am messy. I should say that first and foremost. I put resin on top of my works to cover up my mess. So that's my protection. But all my work is actually photography based. So I've always been a collage artist. I love taking photos of well, it used to be abstract things. You know, graffiti, trains, industrial warehouses, rust. So my photos individually, I didn't think they would gather much attention. But when I started cutting them up and creating and building new stories out of them, that's where I feel the magic happens. So like this piece right here is actually, well, they both are, just cut photographs. And it started from, not because I love my Exacto blades and cutting and giving my wrists a hard time. When I first started, the strips that you see in this piece were actually, I used to trash them. And after a while, I felt, why was I tossing these pieces away? Because I could do something with them. When I first started my collage, it had bigger, thicker pieces. So when I would mount them to, you know, my panels, anything that was left over, I would just trim it and toss it. And I tossed it for years. And I finally thought, you know what, I should start saving these. And then like this piece also, were all the remnants that I used to cut off my bigger pieces. I do a lot with shapes, circles, hexagons, all kinds of shapes. And these pieces were created from the remnants. And the sad part is I loved these pieces so much making them that when I ran out of remnants, I started actually cutting pieces up into smaller pieces to create these. So it's no longer remnants. It's actually now part of my artwork.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I use all the paint skins, the drips from the paints, and I collect
Yes, I
those.
love that you do that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I admit I have thrown remnants away. I'm sorry.
I wish I had it for years because I could have had a lot more artwork. I mean, now I print photos just to actually cut them up into these little pieces, and it seems like insanity. But I love the work that comes out of it. So these were definitely kind of happy accidents that are now part of my repertoire.
Well, I love your sense of color and design. And, you can, even though you can't see the full photograph, you can tell, you can kind of get a sense of your style, in photography too, through these, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people want to cover up graffiti. And honestly, the minute something goes up, I'm running in an alley trying to find, where the new stuff's going up. I think graffiti artists, I think they have a great sense of color. I like to think they have a great sense of color, and it's not just which spray paint they can steal from Home Depot, but they love color and they love just many colors blended together. And this piece in particular, it became, after I did my first strip piece, I have to create it methodically, because in order to get that design in the art, it has to be, each strip has to be laid down in a row in different angles all the way throughout the piece. And that's what gives it that kind of square. It looks like you're looking at 4 squares in it. So I have to pay attention when creating pieces like this. It's kind of difficult.
Yeah, well, both pieces, came together just beautifully.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just put a plug in for everybody. Are you opening for the art walk? We just got dates. The brewery art walk is April 29th and 30th. So if you want to see Lorraine's work in person, we'll be open April 29th and 30th for the art walk. So thank you, Nicola.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Vicki, here we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a really great show, and it's really an honor to be a part of it. So thank you, Christine, and thank you, the rest of everybody that's here. So I tend to do nature-based work, and I have a big interest in—
Thanks for coming.
In the philosophical element of like the ontological language of being. So I had fun with the very first one called Bounced Around. This was kind of, I have done circles before, and this is almost my return to circles. And I was painting, I was using watercolors and acrylics, and then I was kind of just screwing around with something. And this sometimes happens, is I just kind of screwed around with something and threw it on top of the painting I was doing. I said, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to just stop right there, because it kind of reminded me of how I was feeling at the time, which was like popcorn. Like, you know, my attention span was probably about 30 seconds in length. So I tried to do a little independent painting behind each circle. And I was having fun. It was just, I was having fun with it. And the next one is called Relational Gaps. I think it is, maybe it's the third one. Yeah. And this one as, so this summer, people re-entered my life that just for whatever, lost phone numbers, something, and that there were gaps in relationships. And it sometimes felt like there was no 10-year gap at all. And I love that element about human beings, how you can get back on the phone and be connected with somebody. And then the other one before that is Destruction and Creation. And I will say this was right before the triple-digit heat wave that we had in August, September. And I knew I would probably not be in the studio as much and be in the house where there was a better air conditioner. And so I brought everything in the house, but really it's, I have 2 drawers of samples, and some of the samples are about as big as my thumb. And I saved stuff. And I thought, well, I'm just going to keep cutting circles and keep cutting circles and keep cutting circles, and then try to figure out ways to glue this. And all of this is pretty much all scraps that I pieced together. And which is why it's called Destruction and Creation, which is like something got destroyed, a little bit to what Nicola was just saying, you know, all my scraps. And then recreating it. So that gives you a little bit of background to the piece.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I mean, one of the things I loved about these pieces, of course, is the repetition, of course, the circles, you know, I'm a sucker for circles. And also, and a lot of the work too, I'm like, how was that made? You know, like looking at it, you know, it was just like trying to figure it out and not be able to tell. And so the mystery, you know, behind the work was also something that attracted me. So no, thank you. I'm so excited to have your work in the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Lorraine. There we go. You can go, you'll need to unmute.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. All right, again, thank you for organizing this show. I feel like I consider myself a painter, and about 10 years ago, I just started cutting through the paper I was painting on. And so I feel like I look at a lot of exhibits that are work created out of paper, but I still was completely blown away by this exhibit, the craftsmanship, the content, the diversity of the way people work with their materials. I'm so impressed. In my work, which falls into 2 bodies of work. I do a lot of nature inspired work, and then I do a lot of urban landscape inspired work. And I keep connected to the tradition of paper cutting that is in so many countries around the world, where I do make like one layer that is like my drawing. And then I am painting on the backside, filling it in with colors of the different papers that I collect. And so going back to like, this one is just like of my neighborhood and the kind of the falling apart infrastructure that we have. obviously the other one is just the chaos of our city driving and the pressure that we all feel. Yeah, so that's pretty much these images, but thank you again for including me.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, just the attention to detail, you know, in these. And again, you know, I can't, the blood, sweat, and tears, you know, the pain of, you know, all of the cutting that goes into these and the detail, you know, they're just wonderful. So
Thank you. I always say it's my mindfulness.
yes. Oh, totally, totally. My Exacto Knife. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, Paul. Oops, let me get out of that. There we go. Okay, Paul.
So I've been making paper art for about 50 years. And in about 2018, I think it was, I have about 150 feet of old books. I only work with antique material. And so about 4 years ago, I discovered that I was buying the same book over and over again. And it sort of disappointed me until I realized, gee, I should be collecting these images that are the same. And so that's how this group that I call Wave Patterns emerged. In the beginning, I just started slicing them like in 1/2-inch increments and combining them very just straightforward. And then I started playing with angles, and a lot has to do with after they're cut, how I choose to reassemble them, such as the one was just on the screen. Can you go back one? Yeah, so here I was more or less following the lines of her arm, then of her face, and allowing a new creature to sort of be created. Because like in this image, I have 3 of this original image. I end up with a piece that's sometimes they're as long as 4 feet because of the original images are like 18 inches. And so they just compile. Can you move on? So here I started playing with like cutting on an angle and making a background cut in parallel and verticals and just playing. A lot of it is play when I start putting it back together. I usually will combine the images one over the other and I cut them at the same time. And then I take them apart and I see what I have and I just start the process of playing. I was a dancer before I started making art. And so a lot of it is dance related in the sense of I'm very interested in rhythm, in patterns, and what I would call sort of theatrical stage imagery. For instance, this one is obviously a dancer. Another thing I like, which this one shows, can you go back again? That this shows very clearly is that because I'm working with this printed matter from the original books, if they come from, say, an early part of the run or a late part of the run, you can see that the colors has changed. And I love playing with those patterns of the colors and creating rhythms that way as well. In this style that I do, it was just, someone just said to me, you know, that looks very much like flame stitching or what they call Bargello or Bargello. I never knew about it. I just looked it up this week. And yes, indeed, in the 18th century, they were doing embroideries. They were usually abstract embroideries, not figures like this, but they just would create these wonderful zigzaggy patterns. What else can I tell you? I have to just interrupt myself to say this is an incredible show. I'm just blown away how beautiful this show is. Thank you so much for making me part of it. This is a very early wave pattern where this is actually just one figure, but by the way I reassembled it, it created this kind of strange abstract in the center and it became 2 people.
Yeah, I mean, really wonderful. You know,
here I'm playing with angles and trying to create a sort of movement in it. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
another sort of the Bargello type. And this one is a little interesting in the sense that I started with a very linear pattern, again, in that sort of flamey kind of stitchery. But when I got to the figure, I started messing with the way I was cutting it. So, and then I went back to the original. So it kind of gives her a little bit of a standout.
Awesome. Well,
If
yeah.
anyone's interested to see, I make lots and lots of art. If anyone's interested to see more, it's paulplumidor.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul, for being.
Thank you. Really an honor.
Yeah, thank you for submitting the work. And, you know, they're just beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's see, Mary Ellen. Oh, there we go.
I think I'm unmuted. Well, thank you so much for including me. I can't believe I got into this show. I usually never make it. So this is really exciting and a delight, and to be around this incredible work is just, I don't have the words for it. The tiny sad thing about my piece is that it was part of a series I had COVID, and I had done a series of them of 5 or 6 of them, and I used that black heart in all of them. And so, and these are all, they were all cigar boxes. So they photographed great together because I always use vintage papers. I collect old vintage books, vintage journals, everything, usually from late 1800s to, I stop at about 1940. So all of my papers are vintage and antique and old. And so I love repurposing the cigar boxes because they're just fabulous. And I like using the papers to make something pretty out of a piece of scrap that was going to get thrown away, and giving all these old vintage works you know, a new life again. And I do have a picture, and I saw my phone, and I doubt it'll photograph well, and I don't know if anyone can see it, if I'm doing it right. But that is a piece that has a few of them together, and I don't even know if that's working because I can't see. So,
yeah.
but that it was from, it's called the Black Heart series, and I had cut that black heart out of old paper and used that black heart in the different boxes for all of the boxes that I had used. So. That's pretty much it.
Well, thank you. And I'm so happy to have you as part of the exhibition. It's, you know, this work, like when I saw it amongst the other work, I love the simplicity. Of course, the pattern, you know, the pattern and design, which I love. And just the poetry of it, you know, even like this mark here and, you know, and this like kind of rose feature, yeah, there was just something with it, and I could see it within the exhibition. It just, you know, sometimes it works out that way. So no, it's, yeah, it's a really, really, it's a lovely poetic, you know, piece.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is I had sold all the other ones, and this was the last one I still have on hand. So, and I know in the exhibit it had to be available. So there it is.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad you're part of the exhibit.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, let's see, Ellen. And oh, there we go.
And I would also like to thank you very much for including me in this show. I'm going to take off my glasses so I don't look weird now. I can't see. I have been doing paper cuts for about 37 years, and I finally got a grant for 2020, just in time for the pandemic to hit. But I was able to buy large sheets of paper, so these pieces are much larger than anything I'd done before. These are 27 by 39, and in order to be able to work that large, we had to get rid of 2 large pieces of furniture in our living room, rearrange everything, get a work table in there. And then I discovered that working really large is kind of an acrobatic feat compared to working small. I have to, because I can't spin the paper around the way I do when I'm working on a smaller piece, I have to sort of contort my whole body, which was interesting to learn. This piece is part of a series that I started and called as long as the rivers shall run. And I thought of it as I wanted to do various major rivers in the world, starting with the Mississippi for obvious reasons, and to kind of explore the environmental challenges facing those rivers. So these pieces include native species, some of which are endangered, some of which are not, and also invasive non-native species, and then bits about the impact of humans on these various stretches of the river. So this particular series of about the Mississippi has 5 stretches of the river in it. So this is the middle stretch. It's the 3rd of the series. And it's set, you can see it says Cairo on the side because I was envisioning it as being near, or Cairo it's pronounced, I think, Cairo, Illinois. And I'm a huge Mark Twain fan. So Cairo, Illinois is where Huck and Jim were trying to get Jim to so he could escape. And they went past Cairo in the dark and ended up, he was not in a free state anymore. And the jar below there has a Mad Tom fish in it. Mad Toms like to hide in small things. And of course, there's Tom Sawyer, who became kind of a villain in Huckleberry Finn. And on the far left in the bottom corner, there's a beer can because there was I think it was Bush Beer did a series of beer cans featuring sport fish. And of course, a lot of people who consider themselves sportsmen litter all over the damn place. So there we are, celebrating the outdoors with a piece of litter. Yes, and this piece is about the Delta. And when I'm trying to figure out what species I want to feature, I don't necessarily go for the really obvious ones, like say the alligators. I want to go for ones that I find interesting, that I want to learn about, because sort of the way I learn about the world is by doing artwork about it. So I learn about the species by researching. I researched before the Mississippi for about a year before I started even drawing anything. So this piece, the underlying theme is basically life and death, which is why I have the turkey vulture looking at the dead bowfin fish. And in the process of doing all these pieces, I've learned a lot, and I've moved on now to doing the Nile, which is just wrenching and horrible because colonialism is very much not dead on the Nile. That's all I've got for now, and I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ellen. I mean, one of the things that attracted me to the work was, you had mentioned there's like 8 layers of paper, I think. And
some of them have 11. The most I have is 14.
Wow. Wow. And just, how painterly they look, how you make paper look like paint. I mean, they're really, really beautiful works.
Thank you so much. And I was very impressed when you were talking about how you decided which pieces were going to go in this show, and the sort of almost musical way you ordered it. It's really, it's a beautiful and incredibly fun show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you're part of it.
I am too. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, Catherine. Let's see. Oops. Oh, I need to get out of that and then see. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
Hey everyone, my name is Catherine Hood. Again, to reiterate, I love this show. I love how many artists are in it, how we all have such unique voices and unique practices. And I'm super glad to be a part of it. I have 3 photographs in the show, actually. The funny thing is that I do collage work as well, but I chose to submit these photographs because the act of cutting, the act of scoring, the act of breaking is very important in this work. So these 3 pieces are part of a larger body called Porcelain Canvas 2. They use Chinaware to depict how social constructs and gender roles affect women, especially in the South. So like with this piece is called What Carries You. I took a serving platter and scored it with a glass cutter, and thankfully it broke apart mostly in 2. We've got a chip on that left wing, but I used them to give the subject these beautiful strong wings that really elegantly mimic her tattoos, which was more a reaction of chance than purpose with that. But this one has a partner called What You Carry, that is 2 smaller plates that are kind of opposite shape of the wings. They almost look like ladybug wings that are smaller and further in on the back. So with this, I wanted to really depict strength. I wanted to enforce the idea that we all have brokenness, but we still have such strength with that. The other 2 photographs are a pair. This one is called And Justice For. The other one is called With Liberty. The With Liberty has her arm up and she's holding a broken teacup. If people catch on, you can see that this arm mimics the Statue of Liberty, where she's holding the flame in her right hand. In the other piece, And Justice For, the broken serving platter represents the tablet that Lady Liberty holds. And I remember when photographing this one, I played around with which direction she would hold the plate, whether that sharp edge would go away and onto her hand or whether it would go into her hip. Had it turned around the other way where the rounder edge was on her stomach and thought it was fine, and then turned it around and saw how it poked into that side of hers, especially close to where women's reproductive organs are. And I said, that's absolutely it. I just loved how it turned out, especially in the pair with the teacup. For this project, I mentioned this came from a series. I used a number of different patterns of Chinaware, a number of different types of pieces, and most of the time I tried to buy, in 2 instances, I tried to buy a set of Chinaware so that I could have practice materials. Like that teacup, I tried probably 3 or 4 times until I got a break that I really liked, that I thought was fitting. This particular plate with the dark blue pattern, I only had 1 shot on, so if it crumbled to pieces, then that's what I would have used, and thankfully it didn't. But as I mentioned, that chip on there is all part of happenstance. I just showed this body of work here in Charlotte, North Carolina, last month. Got a lot of good reaction from it, and I love that I'm in this exhibition with everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. I mean, I love the work on so many levels, and it's definitely my work about body image. I mean, is what drew me, and then everything else. I mean, really, really wonderful work. So
yeah, I thankfully all the models that were in my work were friends or acquaintances, but I tried to use folks who look different than each other, who were larger, who were thinner, and I especially loved giving voice to plus size women that typically are not depicted as with a certain amount of beauty. So that was very intentional for sure.
Yeah, and these photos are screaming out in many, many ways. So
Mhm.
they're wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Susan. There we go. Hello.
Hi. I just want to also say what fantastic work is in this show, and I'm so happy to be introduced to so many fantastic artists. And thank you for including my work, Christine. It's so varied. Everybody's work is amazing. This is part of my Leaky Faucet series. In 2018, I wanted to start making statements or more statements than I had been making about social issues and contemporary issues. And the leaky faucet image is a metaphor for my voice. So I'm making a statement about each piece. This is about homelessness. And it's my first foray into collage. So I happen to have chosen a very tedious form of collage, like the homeless picture or collage is made of, I can't even tell you how many little tiny pieces, because I was looking for photographs online that were all copyright free, and looked at homeless encampment pictures all over the world, because I wanted different, from the foreground to the background. So they had to be bigger and smaller and everything. And then I cut them all up to make the mountains and to make it look like it has some depth. And then I found the picture of the Skid Row sign. I thought, oh, that's perfect. This one, of course, is about the environment, climate change, also made of different photographs. Pretty obvious what that's about. And this is about immigration. And then I went further and I started adding objects to the collage. This one ended up being in a box, and I added the wire, and also because such horrible things were going on in 2018 about immigration and how people were treated at the border. I'm primarily a sculptor, but my practice has become very multidisciplinary in the last 5 years. I started painting in watercolors during the pandemic, and then did collage. So it's very cool to be included with all of you wonderful collage artists.
Well, thank you so much. It's, kind of like I was saying, the attention to detail and, the many layers to the work, and also, yeah, the very, small elements and the cutting and, yeah, everything that went into these, really, really powerful.
Thank you. Lots of cutting.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see, Alicia. Oh, there I go again. Let's see. There we go. All right.
Hi, so it's great to be a part of this show and see all this awesome work. So I am traditionally a sculptor and enjoy cutting things out of steel and making large scale works. But with working a full-time job and having 3 small children, I had to kind of figure out a way to keep making work, but be able to do it safely at home or with a small kid close by. And so, or asleep, which is probably more often the case. So I started experimenting more with collage and paper. I'm really interested in using remnants of things. So small pieces of fabric that I'll find discarded at like the fabric store, or things that I have left over from older projects. I also will take papers that are discarded from my job, where I have to deal with a lot of safety data sheets. And I dye those and cut those apart too, which is kind of soothing in a way to me. And And so I'm working with a variety of materials and just experimenting and trying to play and have fun. And I've also recently been figuring out ways to incorporate my own remnants back into these pieces. And so as I've cut over years and years, I've saved all of these little pieces and shapes. And so I'm finally kind of figuring out ways to put them back in, like this one, so that you have the negative with the positive, and just have fun with that. So thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Yeah, I love, the use of negative and positive space, and also, like somebody said, very biological, natural. Yeah, and the use of, the different types of materials and how you blend them together. And and the compositions. I mean, they just, they're really fun but deep also. There is I mean, again, many levels to these. And I love how you also blend it with, with the paper, with your,
Right.
the safety data sheets.
Yeah, those definitely have them in there.
Yeah.
Neon colors.
Yeah. No, these are really great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing and being part of the exhibition. Oops. All right. Let's see. Erica. There we go.
Well, I too am pleased to be in the exhibition. And as you can see, there's been some change here. These are getting more sculptural. And while I started actually buying paper and for a while there, I've been only using recycled material these days. It comes right out of the trash heap and frequently goes right back in, because as they get more three-dimensional, it's more difficult to save it. It's fragile and getting bigger. Some of them are wall-based and some of them are freestanding or leaning, which has been interesting to me recently. But the content is really about the materials and all this work. There's nothing else to talk about in terms of metaphors. This is quite a large piece. It's probably 48 inches high, made of a variety of materials, but mostly the corrugation is part of the sort of the rhythm of it. And you begin to see the various colors. I'm also interested in the stamps, not only that tell you what was in the box, eggs or whatever, but on the bottom it says the company that made the paper. And I've got a collection of these paper recyclers from all around the country. And this one, I got a wonderful piece of curved paper. So that became the subject matter, it's about the curve. And sometimes also the mechanism that for hanging the thing becomes part of the content as well, or pins that you see holding them together. So that's the stuff is what it's all about. In this one, I actually bought a roll of corrugated paper, which was fabulous. So like big as a truck tire, and it's sort of wonderfully bendy, and so I had a good time with that. This is an earlier piece where actually the push pins became part of the content as well. And as you can see, it's not just a question of photograph of a thing, but the shadows part of it as well. I think when you go through it, you see that some of them, something like this, I just don't know how to keep it. Couldn't possibly keep it because I got it, but it's complicated because the droop is so much part of the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, these are wonderful. I love how simple they are, but how deep they are and how elegant and just classy and clean. They're really powerful works for being everyday things. I don't know, I must have thousands of thumbtacks, and like somebody was saying about saving, as collage artists, we save a lot of stuff, but I'm like, if I saved all of the cardboard and all of the packing material that I love because of repetition, I'm like, yeah, it's like I wouldn't have room for anything. And
Well,
so,
you especially need it when you throw it away. I mean, that's
yeah,
the secret. Or if you go and buy more, then you find that you already had it. So
exactly.
those are the rules of life.
Exactly.
I'm glad that you're looking closely at this, and I appreciate your interest. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And, and thanks for telling us, one of the reasons I love doing these artist talks is, because we can see art in exhibitions and stuff, but to actually hear the artists talk about them, it's like, I love how artists' minds work. It's, that's why I love the art world, that, yeah, it's just amazing. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, another Jennifer. There we go. Oh, yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So, also, I mean, of course, all of us are so honored to be here. I am blown away at the just skills and goals that I have set myself now. So thanks for the inspiration. And a shout out to everybody, including everybody who put this together, of the time we take just to bring beauty to the world, because we have to create. So shout out for that. But this is my piece. It's called Blue Skies, and it's a picture from Joshua Tree National Park. And I'm a weaver. I'm traditionally a overshot pattern weaver. That's what I was trained in, or that's what I was drawn to when I took weaving way back in the day. And so I've been working with overshot patterns for quite some time now. And during the pandemic, I would go to my local, neighborhood national park, which is Joshua Tree, and take these pictures. And I would always talk to people because I'm a solo traveler. And I was just so drawn into all the national park stories. So I took my loom to Joshua Tree and wove in the park and collected national park stories and took pictures. And then I bring those pictures back to my studio and cut them up and weave them with an overshot pattern. So this is actually a cotton linen blend string over a picture that's cut up into 1/4-inch strips and then woven back together. And for people who buy my pieces, they get these really cool national park stories. And I actually have just a couple of seconds queued up, if you'll bear with me. Let's see.
Last summer, we took an RV and did Redwood National Park and Crater Lake. Both were amazing. And I think that Crater Lake was my favorite of the two, although the walk through the forest in Redwoods was just unbelievable. It was like,
it's amazing. So it's just really such a process of how we are so connected through nature, and the national parks really offer that in our country. I do weave all kinds of photos, not just photos from national parks, but this one's from my national park series. And I lug my loom out there, and and of course weaving's a great conversational kickoff. Yeah, it's really neat, and they take on an almost fabric look to them, even though it's photograph paper. So yeah, it's a great process, and it's something new. It's a lot of trial and error to get it to work for me, but I love the end result. So yeah, so thanks to you, and to all of us cutters out there. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, well, thank you. And one of the things, I mean, there's so many different works. I'm like, how was that made? I mean, when I saw this, I was like, just how was that made? And I actually didn't even realize that the photo was cut up, because it looks like so precise, like the way it's put together. And yeah, it's a really, really wonderful piece. And of course, the repetition and the rhythm, in this work, it almost has its own language. which is really wonderful. And so I love that you include the conversation with it. I think, that's just, I can imagine a whole show where people are, have their heads, wearing headsets, standing
Yeah.
in front of the work, listening to these stories. I mean, how fun is that?
Yeah, it's and as weaving them, because I weave them on a Gilmore 45-inch floor loom.
Okay.
And as I weave them, it really just tangibly establishes our connection as I weave each of those strings and each of those layers, to have the image come out.
Absolutely. Really wonderful, which is another layer to the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a fun process. It's a fun journey. And trying, as with all of us, you give me hope, everybody, because I see and hear your stories and your processes, and it makes me feel better about not feeling like I'm just a constant mess up in the profession that I seem to tell myself I know what I'm doing. When then I figure out, well, you kind of know what you're doing.
No, I'm envious to, take your loom out and travel, and, and Joshua Tree is magical. It's one of my favorite places.
So magical. One of these days I said I want to weave in the snow, but every time it comes close to snow and I'm all like, it's too cold.
Yep. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thanks. Thank you. And thank you for the time you put in to put all this together. It really is such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
You're welcome. All right, Nadia. There we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, basically these pieces I'm in my undergrad right now for painting, and I haven't really worked much with paper, but I've been researching Orientalism and specifically French Orientalist artists like Ingres, who this might be a painting that you guys recognize. It's super famous. Everyone is obsessed with it. But I've been really interested in the way that Arab and Middle Eastern women have been depicted in media, especially in the past, but also nowadays. And the way they've kind of been objectified and fetishized. For example, in this painting, I feel like she is an oriental object placed around a bunch of other oriental objects that are just trendy and high fashion, but completely neglects the culture. So what I've been trying to do, I've done a lot of painting to cover them, and especially because these are areas that really value modesty, I've been trying to look at the nudity that's been kind of broadcast and put on display for Europeans to see, and nowadays just Westerners in general, and covering them and cutting and taking the these images away to show off more of the culture instead of the trends that have come up that are obsessed with Orientalism and Arab styles and stuff. And I don't know, kind of draw attention to Arab art and not art made about Arabs. So yeah, for this piece, I put it on top of a prayer rug. I've been really obsessed with pattern recently because that's the way that Arabs make art, especially for Muslims in the Quran. You can't it's considered disrespectful to depict someone because it kind of flattens their self into an image. So that's why you don't see images of God and prophets and stuff. It's super disrespectful. So I've been kind of thinking of removing figures from art and replacing them or cutting them or covering them with pattern that is more of the language of Arabs. So yeah.
No, these works are just so powerful. And, as soon as I saw them, I knew what you were doing. I remember reading Edward Said, on Orientalism in school, and just that people still use the word Oriental, it just I'm just shocked. I mean, it's crazy. And so when I saw these, and especially, I mean, I've studying her in art history, and then realizing who she is and what she represents and how you're portraying the work. It's really, really powerful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been this is my first time playing with paper, but I don't know, I'm trying to approach this in multiple ways. I'm doing visual research. This is I don't know, when I started it, it was just like an idea. Like I kind of didn't expect for it to like turn into like a finished piece. It was more like just like research and practice, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of started cutting and then putting it against things and seeing. I was definitely thinking about like what to display behind it. I was considering layering different like Orientalist paintings. I was thinking of like where the objects I was like taking, where I was getting them from. Like this is a prayer rug from a thrift store that my friend bought, but the jaleb, like the dress, is one that I actually got from Morocco when I went to visit my family there. And like I wanted to kind of play with this dress being like not the most like typical Arab like object. Like when people are thinking of more like, I don't know, just have some sort of like fantasy imagination of what Arabs look like and dress like. And this is like something that you would wear when you're doing housework, you know, and just like being like, okay, so if you're obsessed with Arab objects, these are the Arab objects that we are used to, you know?
Mm. Wow. Wow. Well, again, so powerful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So excited. So happy to have you as part of the exhibition.
Thank you again. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Let's see. Penny. Oops. There I go again. And here we go.
Hi.
Hello.
So I too was inspired by the lockdown. This is part of a series that is about COVID. I love history and I love to have a dialogue between different times. And of course, we look at history to try to learn about the present. So, of course, I went to the last pandemic, which was in 1918, and I did a bunch of research about it. And I found this picture of shop girls at the top, and they were all lined up and they were all wearing masks. I printed it on a sort of vintage pattern so that it would have some kind of texture. And I colored some of them pink and some of them I made purple because I found in my research that when people were seriously ill with the Spanish flu, their skin turned like a mahogany color. And then I was also working with the idea of the grid because that was how we were communicating with each other on Zoom. And I found this picture of these women that were entwined, like an interesting set of twins. I did the collage first. And I wanted to come up with an interesting way of presenting it. And I remembered that when the Salvation Armies and Goodwill were still open, that I had started collecting these old plates. And I had inherited some from my mother who had passed away as well. And it occurred to me that since I'm doing this piece about women and women are often in serving kind of positions and even emotionally serving as well, supporting each other, that I could use that as a frame. So basically that's what I wound up doing. And I lined it with, it's actually a mesh placemat, like a plastic placemat from, the 99-cent store or something like that. And of course their faces, their heads are COVID cells. And I also integrated some vintage newspaper from 1918 into the background as well. It's kind of a shame that we're not looking at this in person because the plate itself is incredibly unusual. It actually has like little dog patterns along the edge. So anyway, so it was sort of my way of trying to figure out like what's going on with, what's going on in the world. Are we going to get through this? And when I looked at the history and saw that, okay, the world, this wasn't the first pandemic, even in the last, 110 years, that we'll get through it. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. I love the multi-layered, approach to this. And, it was like at first glance, because of the colors and the pattern, it like seems peaceful, but then when you really look at it and realize what it's representing, it's powerful. And especially, I read the description that you sent. And so, talking about, the Spanish flu 100 years before, and how you're telling the story. I just love how it came together and the materials that you use.
Thank you. I really appreciate being part of this group. The show is really striking. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you. All right, let's see, Julie. There we go. Let's see. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for including me in the show. It really is wonderful. It's a shame it's online only, because I see there's a lot of textures here and these pieces really would come alive in person. It's interesting. I didn't think I was a collage artist until somebody told me I was. Kind of unintentional collage. I use photo transfer, so all these images you see here are actually photo transfers, not collages, not physical like paper. I consider myself a mid-century modern mixed media artist, and often with a historical twist. I repurpose vintage appliances and make them the centerpiece of the collage work that retells little-known stories from post-World War II until the late 60s. The work reflects society of that period because it's all bright and sunny and fun from a distance, but the closer you get to it, the darker side you see. So this piece here, Doomtown, talks about the nuclear testing site just 60 miles outside of Las Vegas in the 50s, while the Civil Defense Department of the US government was teaching people how to prepare for the inevitable possible atomic bomb. The city of Las Vegas decided to use atomic explosions as an opportunity for tourism. And the woman you see in the front here is the real Miss Atomic Bomb. All of these pieces are 3D. I use these vintage televisions and I got them and cut the face off of them. So what you're seeing are 3D pieces, and the women in front are, for the most part, appliance models from 1950s ads. But as you blow them up, they become these sinister ladies. This piece is called BFD. It reveals a little piece of history that I kind of stumbled on when I was doing some research in this newspaper archive that I use. This editor of a small town newspaper just south of Birmingham, Alabama, had published this letter bemoaning all the benefits given to African Americans, and his position was there should be rights for whites. And this was just before the Birmingham campaign, which is the image you see in the television.
Wow.
And Know Your Place looks at the societal messages the advertisers and magazines were directing towards mid-century women. So if you've ever seen Mad Men, you have an idea of what the work environment was like and what kind of messaging was the societal norm. Advertising copy reinforced women's role as the homemaker whose life was relegated to keeping the home tidy and her man satisfied. And this piece, Mommy, it deals with a period of time between 1945 after World War II and before Roe v. Wade in 1973, when young women, some as young as 12 who were pregnant, would be forced to carry their pregnancy and then give their child up for adoption. And they were often closed adoptions. So if you ever remember hearing stories of girls who like went to live with her aunt or uncle over the summer, chances are they were going to homes like Catholic social services, where they would live in a communal environment, be put to work until their delivery date, and then they would be forced to sign a paper saying that they would be giving the child away in a closed adoption. And my mother was one of those women. This piece is a little different in that it's a dryer door, so it kind of represents the work that the girls would have to do in these environments. You see there's a fetus inside the dryer door. And in various parts of the background where you see these triangles, they're all images of women, and my mother is in some of those images there.
Really powerful.
Yeah. So that's my work. You can see these in person. I'm going to have a solo show coming up on Tax Day at Gallery 825. So if anyone's interested in seeing them in person, you can see me there.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And yeah, thank you. I mean, I loved how they're framed. Again, the attention to detail, you know, for each one. It's, you know, just really, really wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Was there anybody else who didn't put their hand up, was being shy, wants to get in before we end? Oh, Hillary. All right.
Hi.
Hello.
This is such a great show, Christine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Well, gosh, I have been, I'm a chronic dumpster diver. I've been cutting plastic jugs for over 20 years. I think I started doing it in grad school when I was broke and I was playing with light and shadow and wanted something that would catch light and shadow well. So I would go around the neighborhood and round up milk and water jugs, which were the more transparent ones, translucent ones, and I could project onto them and play around with them. So I've been cutting plastic jugs at different intervals over the last 20 years for different things. I think I started thinking about them as homes or housing structures about 10 or 12 years ago when I was drawing some homeless folks at a shower program in downtown Long Beach. And one of the guys was telling me about how his business, he was entrepreneurial, and in his recycling business, he made a point of collecting the heavier weight plastics because he could get more money for that. And after that series of drawings, I did some little assemblages sort of representing the stories that these guys had been telling me as I'd drawn them. And for him, I took some plastic bottles like the ones that like these ones, the number 2 plastic, which are the heavier ones, and cut some sort of windows and doors out of them and thought, okay, that's interesting to see them as buildings. So I guess these have a lot of different takes on them. There's obviously an environmental take, a lot of issues with plastic in the environment. They have the housing take on them and homelessness and all of that. I'm, kind of just interested in the shapes of them and relating them to architecture generally. And also just enjoy them as a material because they're actually, this number 2 plastic is really buttery to cut. I've surprisingly never injured myself cutting these, and I generally kind of freeform them. There's a few that I've planned out ahead of time, but most of the ones that you're seeing here, I'm just kind of going for it. And yeah, something about the material just is just the right thickness and I don't know, just the right thickness so that as my Exacto blade goes in, I'm not slipping. I'm able to control the stop points. So it's just an interesting material. So yeah, and I guess generally I wear many hats, but my sculptural work tends to be mostly found object based, and just really like the intersection of art and life and the potential for things to take on new. So sort of seeing potential in the mundane or the discarded. to be a beautiful thing or a new thing again.
I love that. Definitely, yeah, the recycling, reuse, renew, recycle, and you're definitely doing it with this work. So it's really, really great.
And this bunch of jugs has been sitting in my garage for a while. I'd done them before COVID for a couple of different shows, and they'd just been sitting in bags in my garage. And towards the end of COVID, I just thought, let's pull those out and go down to the beach with them and see how they look there. So it was just kind of interesting putting them in a new context and seeing them in the sand and letting the sand run into them. So were they, like all the other crap that's on the beach, sort of washed up, or are they growing out of the sand? And yeah, seeing this parallel with the apartment building behind it, and just kind of playing with the compositions and the repetitions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the fun too, especially seeing them on the beach. Definitely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's see, Zadie. There we go. Hello.
Okay, so this is my piece. Sorry, I was a bit late for this because I'm getting ready to move.
No
So it's
problem.
been kind of stressful, but this piece I based on a photograph that I took of a blue spruce tree that just had these little buds on it. And what I wanted to do was experiment with like realism and trying to make something that looks really realistic with paper. And this is in like this is a low relief sculpture. So the needles kind of look like, especially near the top, they kind of look like they're like coming out at you, but actually they're like squished down because it's a low relief sculpture. And it took a lot of time and cutting and like shaping each little needle. But it was pretty amazing, like the result. And I'm like super, my work, I would say, is like very process oriented, like technique oriented. Like I like to plan everything out kind of before I do it. I think I'm thinking about going to architecture school, and I like how Christine, you thought about being an architect, you mentioned. So I'm really interested in realism and also just like drafting and like planning everything out before I do it. I can say that's kind of a line that goes through the paper art that I've been doing recently. But thank you so much for showing this and accepting this into this exhibition, and hearing about what everybody else has been doing has been really, really awesome. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, plus the size, this is only 5 by 7 inches.
Yes.
I mean, that's tiny. And so to realize like each of those are like even smaller. I mean, they're the size.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably life size in the size of needles, I think.
Yeah. I printed the photo to kind of work from. And so the photo, I think the photo itself was 5 by 7 when I printed it to use as a reference. And so I just made it exactly the same size. And like, Jennifer is saying how she likes the shadows that I use, and like I'm really interested in just there are a couple of paper artists that I kind of take some inspiration from, who just work with white paper, like they don't use color at all, and they make low relief sculptures, and they just use light and shadow. They just rely on light and shadow to get all the effect, and I'm really interested in that.
Oh, cool. Well, keep at it. I mean, this is really, really great.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you, everybody else as well.
You're welcome. You know, when I studied drafting and architecture in high school, when it was AutoCAD 1. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what you're up to now. It's like 12, 13, or, you know,
Yeah.
higher than that. But I didn't like math. So I'm like, that's not going to work as an architect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm also messy and spontaneous and impulsive, and I don't like planning. So it's like, yeah, that wouldn't work either. So I'm better off being an artist. But thank you
Yeah,
so
I'm
much.
taking a class. I'm a design minor. So I'm taking a class that's like mathematics of design this semester. And I think I'm gonna like it, but we'll see.
Oh, cool. Well, I did
Yeah.
like geometry. I just hated trig. I love geometry, but I didn't like math. So
Yeah,
yeah. Well, thank you so much.
absolutely.
All right. Hey, Michael. See, I think you're muted. Should be an icon.
There it is. How's
Oh, there
that?
we go.
Yeah, I missed it the first time. Got my bifocals on and I looked them to the wrong side, I guess. Yeah, this is one of the first pieces I did involving. I do more tearing and assembling, I think, than cutting, actually. This piece is 4 feet by 4 feet. It's mounted on panel. And a couple of the pieces I think I have here are both mounted on panel. This is kind of based as a lot of the art is on found pieces. I was primarily in school. I was a painter, and I went through the ceramics department when Peter Vokos and those types of potters and ceramicists were working, and so I worked very much with large ceramic pieces, and I took a break from the art to do what one has to do sometimes in this business, and raised a family and went about my business, and then came back to art. And I wanted to come back to ceramics, but it was just too hard to do in Southern California. And I started working with cardboard as my 3D side, and I really became very interested in the edges of the cardboard. And instead of cutting, I tear mostly, and I paint the edges. I spend a lot of time painting the edges and working with the edges on this kind of work. But a lot of this was based on, like a lot of us have said today, on during the pandemic. I was just working out of my scraps, and as the scraps out of dumpsters, etc. And I think that what kind of motivated me is I didn't want to focus on so much the scientific side of the pandemic and the fear and all of that. But I thought that I read an interesting article where the trash like doubled and tripled in because everybody was ordering out and everybody was buying from Amazon and UPS and everything else. And so there was just this abundant amount of trash. And I thought I'd use that as kind of my motivation for acquiring and making a statement about the excesses of trash. I mean, we all know that's in existence, but I just thought I'd manifest it through several of the pieces. And this is the largest piece I've made so far, except for my cardboard tubes. I do a lot of work with cardboard tubes, and I find that they're really quite, I like working with them a lot because it's just fun to put together. It's almost kind of a Zen. It's become almost kind of my Zen practice, is building these totems, as I refer to them as, kinds of things. And this is where I actually have cut some stuff and scrounged out some a broken cup I got out of the street, and the wrappings of papers, and obviously a toothpaste tube. It just seemed kind of fun to put on there. I like the whimsy. Some of the stuff is, I just kind of enjoy the whimsy of putting these things together. And I like color. I'm a colorist when I paint. Most of my work is very bright, very intense colors. So using this kind of materials and bottle caps, I have buckets of bottle caps and broken glass that I've acquired. But the bottle caps, has to be rusted. You have to find them in the street. It's kind of my own personal rule. But thanks, Christine. This was an amazing show. This is an amazing show, and I know how difficult this must have been to put together. So thank you very much for your energy and your efforts.
You're welcome. You're welcome. No, I'm really happy to have your works on the show. And yeah, just, I love the color and the composition and, and yeah, I mean, even if it's tearing, that's still, my hands hurt just thinking about that too, So no, I mean, really great work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and we have Christy. Uh-oh. Are you under a different name?
I saw on the website that someone else's name had my work with it.
Uh-oh.
I think it was Mary something.
Let's see. Which oh, okay.
It's down below.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll change that when we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for including me in the exhibition. So this work is part of a series titled The Maiden and the Crone that I started back in 2020. And the general concept for this series of work is this idea of the way in which women and girls are portrayed in fairy tales, fables, parables, and myths. And there's two general archetypes. There's either the maiden, who's seen as naive, in need of help, someone who's, if they're venturing out on their own, they're pretty much looking for trouble, right? And then the other archetype is the crone, and the crone is typically portrayed by an older woman or like stepmother, or someone who's just wicked and not to be trusted. And so it's pitting younger women against older women in many of these stories. And so that's the general concept of the theme of this work. And this is an image of the crone figure that I've decided to use. I use a lot of self-portraiture. So this is myself in costume. My face is covered by a lace doily that I beaded. And the name of this piece is, it's a long title, and I don't know if I have it in front of me. I think it's She is the Storm and the Thunder. And it's basically this idea, the concept of a woman finally coming into her own and finding out how powerful she is. And it's not that she's wicked and cruel that makes her dangerous. She's not. It's a woman who becomes more self-aware and aware of her own power that is really what is being, a lot of patriarchal types of standards really are trying to tell young women to be afraid, to be fearful of, and not to go in that path or direction of self-awareness. And so this is a photograph of myself in this image that I made a photocopy of and cut out. And the background is just a simple watercolor with pen and ink for the tree branches, and then some thread and lace at the bottom. And so, yeah, that's this particular piece, and it's from a larger series. And there's some pieces featuring the maiden, and there's pieces that feature them together as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. When I saw this work, it was just, you know, again, poetic and, you know, elegant and yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, kind of that feminist, you know, political piece too. And yeah, just a really beautiful piece. And also the shadows. And I actually thought it was the wall. I thought it went all the way through and that was the wall and not watercolor paper. And so yeah, so I mean, it matches the wall. But yeah, no, I love how the shadows of the thread also play, you know, are part of the work. And no, it's really lovely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. All right. I am going to stop sharing. I apologize if I missed anything in chat. I just wasn't able to keep up with that. Thank you all so much for joining us, for being part of the show, for everything. And I know, you know, I should have mentioned this at the beginning that, you know, at the end, I was going to announce the prizes because you're probably all waiting for that. So part of the exhibition, if you don't know, we do have 3 prizes. First place, which is a solo show, an online solo show with Shoebox Projects. Second place is $100, and then third place is $50. And again, like I said before, it, you know, the same thing. It was so hard to choose. Yeah, you know, and for many different reasons. So, so I wanted to, well, I'll announce. So second place, the $50 goes to Paul Palmador. So let's see, is he still, or Plumador? Yes, thank you. It's still here. Awesome. And I'll contact you and, you know, get that to you. So congratulations. And then first place goes to Hillary Norcliffe. So congratulations, Hillary. I'm not sure, are you still here? Oh, there you are. Awesome, congratulations. And I will get you that also. I'll email you and, you know, get in touch in the next couple of days. The solo show, again, it was very hard, but I went and looked at websites, you know, too, and, you know, based on so many different things. But the solo show for this round goes to Nadia. And Nadia, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, yay!
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. I can't believe it.
You're welcome. No, just very powerful work, and you know how you implement it, how it all comes together. So I'm looking forward to working with you on curating a solo show.
Thank you so much. Oh my
You're
God.
welcome. You're welcome. So I'll get in touch and we'll talk in the next couple of days and we'll set up a time to meet up.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Again, thank you everybody for participating. This was recorded, so I'm going to put it on YouTube and put the video with the exhibition. So anybody that goes to look at the exhibition will be able to see the artist talk also. You know, let me know if you have any questions. Just a plug, we have an Instagram workshop coming up. If you go to our website, shoeboxarts.com under workshops. And we also have a 6-week professional development workshop. And we also work with clients. We do one-on-one consultations. We're managers, we do PR. And so, you know, we try to help and support artists as much as we can. So please feel free to reach out. Let us know if you have any questions. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday, however much time that is that you have left. And yeah, and great to see everybody and spend the afternoon with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. You're welcome.
I had a great time, everyone. Thank you for inspiration.
Yeah, it was very inspiring and educational and yeah, motivating too. Every time I leave these, I'm like, maybe I should go in the studio now. Always. All righty. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.